A majestic eagle soars over a rugged mountain range, representing the kingdom's powerful ideals. The Elbert Kingdom is renowned for its elite and powerful order of knights. These knights are revered throughout the nation for their pure and unwavering spirit. Every child in this country dreams of one day becoming a knight themselves. However, the reality is that not everyone can achieve the dream of knighthood. A young man effortlessly assists an elderly gentleman with a massive heavy barrel. The old man, Roy Dunno, feels the youth's kindness deeply warm his soul. He anxiously asks if his helper's all right, unable to see him past the barrel. The youth, Sirius, laughs cheerfully after setting the heavy load down with ease. C-rank adventurer explains he was just passing by on his way to the guild. Inside a rowdy guild, the adventurer Grad aggressively challenges the larger Dean to a fight. Sirius observes the chaos, noting that the foolish adventurers are at it again. Roy remarks that with a personality like Sirius's, he would fail the knight's exam. An onlooker states Sirius has been a C-rank for 10 years due to a lack of skill. At the counter, the guild receptionist, Aaron, warmly welcomes Sirius upon his return. The other adventurers watch the two of them with fond, knowing smiles. Aaron gasps in amazement at the 5 pristine gray boar pelts Sirius has brought in. She praises his meticulous work, noting the pelts will surely earn a bonus. Sirius feels a bit bad, wondering if it is right to always receive these bonuses. Aaron firmly states that it is a fair price for such excellent work. She looks at him kindly, assuring him that no one in town harbors a grudge against him. She adds with a blush that she personally finds his humble kindness very appealing. Sirius abruptly grabs her hands with great intensity, leaving her completely shocked. He intensely declares that such kindness is reserved only for someone he truly loves. He recalls being orphaned as a child and saved by the townspeople he considers family. He insists she deserves happiness with a good person, not someone like him. The other adventurers are aghast at his pure, unfiltered, and clumsy rejection. Aaron is mortified, realizing her attempt to get closer has backfired spectacularly. A massive boot suddenly slams down onto the floor, interrupting the awkward moment. The hulking adventurer Dean looms over Sirius, his presence creating palpable tension. Grad, a formidable A-rank adventurer, approaches with a menacing, knowing smirk. An onlooker sighs in resignation, noting that Grad is causing trouble for Sirius again. Grad towers over Sirius, accusing him of getting cocky and always getting on his nerves. His hand lunges forward with aggressive speed, aiming to grab the smaller adventurer. He lifts Sirius by the head, roaring about how much the boy is pissing him off. He demands to know how Sirius managed to skin the thick gray boar hide so cleanly. Aaron rushes in, calling Grad a bully and pleading for him to stop. Grad playfully slaps Sirius around, declaring that the boy needs to be more disciplined. Sirius reassures a concerned Aaron that this is just Grad's rough way of playing. He reflects on being called the do-gooder adventurer for helping the guild. Grad admits to himself that his family only exists today thanks to that very do-gooder. In a flashback, Sirius is seen running urgently towards the request board. He turns a corner with a determined expression, rushing to his destination. He discovers Grad's heavily pregnant wife collapsed on the cobblestone street in distress. Sirius helped her to the clinic and ran to find medicine when they ran out. Back in the present, Grad asks if Sirius abandoned a paying job to help them. Grad looks at Sirius with a softened expression, admitting he is truly grateful. Sirius can only stare in confusion at Grad's sudden and unexpected shift in tone. Grad announces with a massive grin that his 4th child, twins, was just born. Aaron shyly wonders to herself how many children Sirius might want to have. He invites Sirius to the tavern for a celebratory meal, saying it's his treat. Sirius, missing her comment, turns to a flustered Aaron and asks what she said. Aaron timidly asks if the bonus Grad mentioned was just a meal. Grad proudly presents a large sack of meat, announcing it as today's bonus. Aaron smiles brightly, her face shadowed, and tells them to please enjoy their meal. Grad's hand stops Sirius, his expression turning suddenly serious and intimidating. He threatens to kill Sirius if he gets too close to Aaron, his glare intense. He then pats Sirius's back, telling him to let it go for now. The other adventurers now surround Sirius, all of them focused on the bonus. The guild erupts in cheers, congratulating him for hunting another clairboar. The men joyfully demand that he treat them all to ale with his earnings. Aaron realizes that there truly isn't a single person in town who dislikes him. Sirius sits at a table, surrounded by the laughing and celebrating adventurers. She understands his true power isn't in fighting, but in his natural kindness. A gentle, determined smile spreads across her face as her feelings for him solidify. She is suddenly startled, her body jolting as Sirius calls out her name. At the quest board, Sirius points to a monster subjugation request for Yamokakan Forest. Eren explains that with winter approaching, the monsters are desperately seeking food. Sirius accepts the quest, confident that even at his rank, he can handle it. He turns to Eren, raising a finger to make a serious point. He asks her to make a very important promise with him before he leaves. 2 days later, the scene opens on the dense, snowy woods of Yamakakon. Sirius skillfully parries the powerful claw attack of a large wolf-like beast. He stands victoriously over the slain Yonkou, catching his breath after the fight. He confidently thinks to himself that he can handle opponents like the Yonkou. He surveys the several slain beasts, satisfied that the village is now safer. He pulls out his skinning knife, ready to collect the valuable pelts from the corpses. A sharp sound cuts through the quiet of the forest, catching his attention. He looks up in alarm, realizing he just heard a human scream from nearby. The path leading deeper into the forest appears dark and menacing. He vividly recalls Eren making him promise not to enter the dangerous forest depths. He clutches his tunic, apologizing to Eren as he realizes she is in danger. He breaks into a frantic sprint, dashing through the trees toward the sound. He pushes his way through the dense underbrush, his face etched with worry. His eye widens in absolute horror and disbelief at the scene before him. He sees a small, cloaked child standing defiantly amidst a pack of enormous wolves. The child challenges his presence, gesturing to the monstrous beast, a Felyankul. The child stands with a defiant snarl, seemingly unafraid of the creature. Sirius recognizes it as a superior species, a foe beyond his C-rank abilities. The massive Felyankul lunges forward, its claws extended as it attacks the child. Sirius instinctively draws his sword, his hand firm on the hilt. He throws himself in front of the child, blocking the monster's attack. The child stares with wide, shocked eyes at the man who saved her. Sirius grunts, his body straining under the immense force of the monster's attack. With a powerful kick, he forces the Felyankul back, creating a momentary reprieve. The rest of the pack now surrounds them, their low growls filling the air. He urgently tells the child to run for the forest exit while he buys time. The child stammers that it's no use. Her legs are trembling too much to move. Another beast seizes the opening, its massive jaws lunging directly at him. He grunts and grits his teeth, bracing himself for the powerful, full-body tackle. In a desperate tackle, Sirius slams into the monstrous Felyankul, holding it back. The small cloaked child watches the violent struggle, her face a mask of terror. Glaring defiantly, Sirius shoves the beast back, his sword held ready for another attack. The monster's fangs snap viciously, inches from his face during the desperate struggle. He pants for breath, grunting from the sheer exertion of the brief, violent clash. A horrified gasp escapes the child, her eyes wide with fear for her protector. Seeing her trembling legs, he realizes she is too petrified by fear to even move. He knows escape is impossible. His only option is to take one of them down. Having managed to fell one beast, he steels himself for the remaining pack members. The paw of another Felyankul slams down, signaling the continued assault. 2 more colossal Felyankuls emerge from the trees, dwarfing the first ones. A look of utter disbelief crosses his face as he sees the new, larger foes. His heart sinks, realizing the ones he fought were the smaller members of the pack. One of the giant beasts lets out a furious roar and charges forward to attack. With a desperate cry, he brings his sword up in a last-ditch defensive block. The overwhelming force of the attack shatters his guard, sending him flying backward. His eyes are wide with shock as his sword is knocked from his grasp. The pack of monsters now completely surrounds the dazed and disarmed adventurer. He is thrown backward like a doll, crashing hard against the forest floor. The impact knocks the wind out of him, leaving him in a crumpled heap. The snarling Felyankuls close in, their predatory gazes fixed on their helpless prey. He realizes with horror that they are toying with him, enjoying the hunt. A wave of despair washes over him. He knows his skills are not enough. The child trembles in fear, clutching her robes, paralyzed by the terrifying scene. A memory surfaces of a younger child crying for her lost mother and father. He recalls the knightly ideals of being strong and proud, his hand on his heart. He remembers the creed to have a kind heart and be a shield for the people. Looking at the child, he asks if that is truly the way of this country's knights. He sadly admits he never became a knight, but the spirit remains in him. A warm smile replaces his despair as he promises he will absolutely protect her. He gently pats her shoulder, telling her to put some strength into her legs. Her small foot finds its purchase as she shakily begins to push herself up. She stands trembling but upright, looking down at her bloodied protector. A proud smile spreads across his face as he exclaims that she stood up. He tells her to run to the forest exit and not to look back. With newfound resolve, he pulls a small, simple dagger from his belt. He declares that after 10 years as an adventurer, he'll show them what he's made of. He knows he shouldn't be so calm, but a fire ignites within him. He thinks of his 10 years stuck as a C rank, refusing to die pathetically. He imagines his stronger guildmates, like Grad, would face this with courage. A grim determination settles on his face. He will act like a true adventurer. A raw, guttural roar tears from his throat, vowing to struggle to the end. He charges headfirst into the pack, screaming that he will fight back. Leaping forward, his body becomes a projectile of pure, unadulterated willpower. He drives the small dagger deep into the monster's thick neck with all his might. He grits his teeth, putting every last ounce of his strength into the attack. His hand tightens around the dagger's hilt, sinking it deeper into the beast. The enraged Felyankul thrashes its head violently, shaking him off like an insect. Thrown aside, he lands in a crumpled heap as the wounded beast yelps in pain. From the forest edge, the child watches the scene, letting out a small cry. Another of the massive Felyankuls lets out a low growl and advances on him. Before he can move, the beast is upon him, pinning him with a heavy paw. He wheezes, trying to force out words, telling the child to run and save herself. The monster's massive jaws clamp down hard around his torso, lifting him effortlessly. It begins to shake him violently back and forth, like a rag doll in its teeth. His hand goes limp as his world dissolves into a blur of pain and motion. He is thrown through the air, his body battered beyond all endurance. A scream of pure, unadulterated agony is ripped from his lungs. He lands in a broken heap, his tunic soaked with blood, his body shattered. Through a haze of pain, his only thought is to find out where the child is. He sees that she is gone and is filled with a profound sense of relief. As the beasts advance, he whispers for her to escape, ready for the end. He closes his eyes, his sacrifice having bought her the time she needed to flee. Suddenly, the child reappears, standing between him and the advancing monsters. She spreads her arms wide, a tiny trembling barrier against the hulking beasts. A desperate, heart-wrenching scream of denial tears from her throat as they lunge. The tranquil forest floor erupts in a maelstrom of violent, explosive force. From a massive tree, a multi-headed wolf beast bursts forth, snarling viciously. Kuru is thrown back by the sudden, explosive emergence of the creature. The tree's bark glows with an ethereal light, flowing and reshaping itself. At the base of the transformed tree, Sirius lies still, face down in the grass. Two pristine white tree trunks now spiral toward the sky in sacred beauty. Sirius's eyes flutter open, and he murmurs how beautiful the sight is. The scene is so peaceful, he wonders if this is heaven, if he has died. Kuru crawls to him, asking with tear-filled eyes if he saved her. He sees the faces of his friends, apologizing that he won't be coming back. A gentle, pervasive warmth spreads through him, cutting through the pain and despair. His eyes snap open to an unfamiliar, rustic wooden ceiling above him. He is lying in a simple bed, his torso wrapped in bloody bandages. A sharp, stabbing pain shoots through his chest and he grimaces in agony. A small fire crackles in a nearby hearth, the only sound in the room. He pushes himself up, wondering where he is, and sees Kuru watching him. She stands holding a damp cloth, her expression one of pure, unadulterated relief. He registers her presence for a moment before exhaustion pulls him back under. She watches him, noting that his injuries seem to be gone as he sleeps. She quietly observes that he has fallen asleep once again, keeping a silent vigil. When he wakes again, he presses a hand to his head, still in pain. Kuru asks him intensely why he, an adult, would protect her. Her words are tinged with a deep-seated confusion and distrust of adults. He reaches out and gently pats her shoulder, reassuring her that it's okay. The boy winces in pain, his injuries still causing him immense discomfort. Kuru acknowledges his pain, her defensive posture softening slightly at his touch. A soft, brilliant light emanates from her hands, flowing into his body. The light dances over his bandaged wounds, which glow from beneath the wrappings. His wounds respond to her mysterious power, the glowing light mending his flesh. His pained expression eases as he falls into a deep, peaceful, healing slumber. Kuru watches over him, confident that with this, he should be all right. Kneeling by his bed, she reflects that this incredible power is a gift from God. A nightmare jolts him. He sees himself screaming for her to run as claws rip his flesh. The dream culminates in her desperate scream of denial, echoing his own waking cry. The young adventurer Sirius jolts awake in bed, his eyes wide with lingering terror. He looks out at a rustic building, wondering where he is, a sign identifying it as Waka village. Clutching his head, he recalls being attacked by a Fenyakal, questioning if it was a dream. The creak of a door draws his attention, and he sees a small figure peeking into the room. A cat-eared girl named Kuru is startled by his sudden awareness, her face a mask of shock. She holds a steaming bowl, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment as she stands in the room. Sirius watches as she nearly drops the bowl in a flustered clatter, his own expression surprised. An elderly woman enters, calmly noting that he is finally awake and asking who she is. She introduces herself as Surya, the pharmacist of Waka village, holding a tray with a teapot. Sirius explains he is an adventurer named Sirius and thanks her, but she says she knows him from previous requests. Surya insists she did nothing and instructs him to take a look at his own body. Pulling his shirt aside, Sirius stares in disbelief, realizing his grievous wound has completely closed. He remembers the fatal wound, thinking it impossible he survived without even a scar. Surya explains that while he was severely injured when brought in, his wound somehow healed. She hands him a cup of medicine, warning him not to overexert himself as he has lost strength. While drinking, Sirius wonders who could have possibly been the one to save him. Surya tells him not to push himself as he struggles with the medicine's effects. Her expression grows serious as she admits she wouldn't have believed it if she hadn't seen it herself. She recounts seeing a blood-covered child emerge from the forest carrying him, revealing that child was his savior. Sirius looks toward the doorway in shock, seeing Kuru hiding, and questions how such a small girl saved him. With a gentle smile, Surya tells him not to scare the girl as he did before. After she leaves, a bead of sweat rolls down his face as he processes the incredible revelation. He softly calls out to Kuru, asking her to come out from her hiding spot. Kuru shyly peeks out from behind the doorframe, acknowledging his call. He apologizes for yelling, then asks why she's in girl's clothes, surprising her. Her foot shuffles forward meekly as she approaches a chair in the room. She sits down with a dejected air, her cheeks flushed from his comment. Kuru looks up, surprised as Sirius approaches her. He sits before her and bows his head, earnestly thanking her for her help. Looking up, he explains that he heard she was the one who saved him. He expresses his gratitude, stating that he is only alive because of her. His words trigger an emotional outburst from Kuru, who fiercely insists that he saved her. She tearfully recounts her terror, believing she was doomed until he came. He listens intently as she explains that even after being reincarnated, she thought she was going to die. A memory shows him protecting her, and she explains his words and actions gave her strength. Overwhelmed by the memory, she breaks down, sobbing uncontrollably. As her cries subside, she wipes her tear-streaked face, still hiccuping. Sirius watches her with a gentle, understanding expression, simply saying, "Yeah." She looks up at him, her emotional storm having passed. He looks her in the eye and sincerely thanks her once more for saving him. On his third day in Waka village, Kuru stretches, celebrating the beautiful morning. He is surprised to see Sirius running frantically towards him down the village path. Kuru calls out to her, his hands cupped around his mouth, his face filled with concern. Sirius reaches him, a look of immense relief washing over her face as she says his name. Kuru gently asks if she is all right to be walking, and she confirms she is. He suggests they rest for the day, noting the long journey to Garland and telling her not to overexert herself. Sirius beams, telling him she is just glad that he has recovered. When she asks what he was doing, he simply replies that he was out for a walk. Sirius observes the pointy roofs, noting the region must get a lot of snow. Kuru confirms this, surprised she wouldn't know, as he knew it himself when he was 5. He reflects that her knowledge and maturity seem far beyond her apparent age. Sirius asks if they are in the Elbard Kingdom, a question that stuns Kuru with its basic nature. As they walk, a passing villager cheerfully greets Adventurer Shan and Kuru. Kuru asks if the villagers are doing field work, and they confirm it's the last winter harvest. Filled with energy, he grabs a hoe and declares he will help despite their protests. He insists he feels great and wants to repay the village for their kindness. The villagers accept his offer, thanking him for the kind gesture. Kuru's eye widens as he looks up at Sirius. Sirius comments on how kind everyone in the village is. She quietly agrees, adding that she feels it's better not to get too close, but that Sirius is okay. Kuru gives a small "I see," his expression thoughtful. He wonders who she truly is, then asks if she'd like to continue their walk. As they walk, Sirius asks about his healing power and why he was in the forest. Kuru admits that there is much he doesn't understand about himself. Sirius' suggestion that he might be an abandoned noble child echoes in his mind. He worries about kidnapping in a dangerous city like Garland, his mind racing with possibilities. A sudden, swift footstep breaks his train of thought. A cat-eared girl named Lilina dashes forward, calling out to Kuru playfully. She pounces on him from behind, sending him stumbling with a cry of surprise. Lilina lands gracefully after her playful tackle, with Kuru watching. She laughs, declaring that it was all in good fun. Lilina coos over Sirius's chubby cheeks, pinching them affectionately. Kuru holds Lilina back, telling her she's bothering Sirius. Lilina protests that such skinship is important to her. Kuru worries about how to handle the situation without startling Sirius. Lilina insists she won't stop, as Sirius's cute reactions are too much fun. Sirius timidly asks if she can touch Lilina's ears, a request Lilina happily grants. Sirius wonders if Surya also has cat ears, a thought that seems to confuse Surya. Lilina explains she is a beastkin with cat ancestors, unlike Surya's family. She proudly offers her ears, the only ones in the village, for Sirius to touch. Sirius reaches out and gently touches the soft, black cat ear with fascination. She murmurs about how fluffy they are, her eyes sparkling with delight. Lilina laughs and declares it's her turn, pinching Sirius's cheeks again. Kuru smiles, happy to see that Sirius seems to be having fun with Lilina. The sound of an approaching procession draws his attention, and he wonders if someone is coming to the village. Lilina and Kuru turn, their expressions growing serious at the unexpected arrival. Lilina's eyes widen in recognition and apprehension. A pompous, portly nobleman on horseback, Lord Gulkosa, arrives with his retinue. A nervous village elder greets him, asking the purpose of his visit. Kuru asks who the man is, and Lilina identifies him as Baron Gulkosa. Gulkosa smugly identifies himself as the one who governs the region. He asks the elder about their lagging tax payments, feigning concern. His facade breaks as he angrily accuses them of intending to default on their taxes. One of his guards menacingly draws his sword, intimidating the villagers. Gulkosa calmly states that without the taxes, the weak will not survive the winter. The village elder expresses that he hadn't considered such dire consequences. With a smug look, Gulkosa offers to buy the villagers as a solution. The villagers can only stare back in stunned, horrified silence. He chillingly explains that if their numbers dwindle, it will make his own life easier. Gulkosa's gaze sweeps over the crowd, a thoughtful escaping his lips. Standing with his two young companions, Sirius wonders if the approaching figures are beastkin. A portly nobleman's greedy eyes fixate on the girls, finding them to be a rare sight. One of the Baron's guards forcefully silences a villager who begs Lord Gulkosa to stop. The imposing Baron looks down from his horse as Lilina and Kuru protectively shield Sirius. Sirius and Lilina react with concern as the Baron's party approaches them directly. A guard demands to know who Sirius is. He identifies himself as an adventurer from Garland. The guards scoff at his profession, contemptuously dismissing him as a mere rogue. Gulkosa condescendingly states he'll enjoy collecting the unpaid taxes from the beastkin. The Baron angrily gets in Sirius's face, demanding he move aside immediately. Sirius is shocked, realizing the nobleman is knowingly abusing his power against a commoner. He wonders how such a corrupt man can exist in the supposedly pure Elbard kingdom. His thoughts drift to the honorable knight, Aria, questioning how this evil coexists with her ideals. Sirius clenches his fist in frustration, feeling utterly powerless to do anything. Lilina senses his distress, letting out a small sound of worry. She reaches out and gently takes his clenched hand, offering him comfort. Sirius looks down at her hand, her name a quiet thought in his mind. Lilina forces a brave smile, telling him not to worry and that it's nothing. She turns to Kuru, telling her not to look so worried as they can't defy a noble. Sirius's expression hardens as he quietly states his intention to go. He places a reassuring hand on Lilina's shoulder, his grip firm. He tells her gently that it's okay and she doesn't have to go with the nobleman. Kuru looks up at him, her expression filled with worry and concern. Sirius realizes this is all wrong and that defying the Baron will endanger the entire village. A plan begins to form in his mind as Kuru looks at him, sensing the shift. He recalls the lawlessness of Garland, a dangerous idea sparking in his mind. He feigns confusion, addressing Lord Gulkosa with a thoughtful, Sirius reminds the Baron he's from Garland, a fact Gulkosa scoffs at having already heard. He warns the noble that Garland is infamous for its rampant crime and kidnappings. By comparison, he notes with a smirk, this village is quite peaceful, for now. He suggests it would be a shame for the village's peace to be disturbed, as Lilina watches, confused. With a sharp, unnerving grin, he says it's a shame a villain like him must help. Baron Gulkosa sputters in shock and confusion at this sudden change in demeanor. In a flash, Sirius scoops Lilina into his arms and begins to run. He shouts that he was waiting for this chance and won't give it to a noble. Enraged, Gulkosa bellows at his men to chase after them as they flee into the distance. Left behind, Kuru stares after them, wondering why Sirius would go to such lengths. Sirius runs with all his might across a field, carrying the frightened Lorena. He grits his teeth, realizing with grim determination that this is a difficult situation. He knows these knights shouldn't be able to catch him while he's carrying a sick child. The knights begin to close in, their numbers creating a sense of being cornered. The blonde knight leader taunts them, asking if they are foolish for defying a noble. He cruelly reveals that Gulkoza enslaves village children and he will let his men have Lorena. The knight relishes his position as a good superior, lunging forward with his sword. Sirius's expression is one of grim focus as he prepares to meet the attack. He effortlessly parries the blow, sending the knight's sword flying from his grasp. The blonde knight stares in disbelief, sweating as he realizes his opponent's strength. Sirius stands ready with his sword, Lorena now safely behind him. He assesses his C-rank opponents, realizing they are poorly trained and he can handle this. The other knights look on, shocked at what their leader is doing. From his horse, Gulkoza angrily orders his men to attack all at once. The knights surge forward, surrounding Sirius and forming a tight circle of steel. Sirius's eyes widen with strain as he realizes the impossibility of his situation. The knights pile on top of him, their combined weight forcing him to his knees. Lorena is grabbed by another knight, screaming Sirius's name in terror. Gulkoza looks down triumphantly, asking if Sirius is prepared for the consequences. The Baron chillingly promises that he will have Sirius's head for this defiance. Pinned to the ground, Sirius mutters a curse, but then his eyes snap open in shock. He sees a vision of Kuru in a sun-dappled forest, calling his name. Confused, he wonders why she would be here, realizing the danger she is in. His eye widens as a silent, urgent message seems to pass between them. The vision of Kuru's eye fills his mind, her silent command to protect Lorena. A soft, ethereal sound seems to flow from her, granting him power. Baron Gulkoza raises a dagger with a roar, preparing to kill Lorena. Sirius's hand intercepts the blow just inches from its target, shattering the ground. The force of the block is so immense it sends a shockwave across the battlefield. Gulkoza stares, utterly dumbfounded, at the boy who was just subdued. The knights holding Sirius strain against his newfound power, demanding their comrades' help. With a roar, Sirius unleashes a shockwave, sending the knights flying away from him. He sees Lorena still being held captive by another knight. The knight holding her looks on in terror as Sirius approaches. Sirius drives a powerful punch into the knight's stomach, freeing Lorena. He turns to Lorena, asking if she's all right. She tells him he was amazing. Sirius looks at his own hand, wondering where the sudden power came from. Enraged, Gulkoza screams at Sirius, calling him a commoner brat. He frantically orders his remaining men to attack again, even if they have to kill him. Sirius effortlessly dodges a knight's wild swing, moving with incredible speed. He lands a powerful blow, sending the knight crashing to the ground. The knight cries out in pain as he's thrown into the bushes. The blonde leader lunges forward, screaming for the adventurer wannabe to die. Sirius easily ducks under the blade, moving past his opponent. The knight is shocked by the miss, unable to react in time. Sirius grabs the knight's arm, slamming him face first into the dirt. The knight lets out a choked scream of pain as he hits the ground hard. Gulkoza sits on his horse amidst his defeated men, muttering in disbelief. Sirius begins to walk slowly towards the terrified Baron. He calmly tells the nobleman to calm down and listen to what he has to say. Reaching out a hand, he menacingly suggests that the Baron give up on Lorena. The quiet threat shatters the Baron's composure, and he begins to tremble uncontrollably. With a terrified shriek, Gulkoza yanks his horse's reins and flees in a blind panic. Sirius watches them go, the tension finally leaving his body. He slumps forward, sighing in relief that they were somehow saved. He realizes with a grimace that this incident has become a very serious matter. Lorena comes over and gently pats his back, offering what comfort she can. Overcome with emotion, Lorena finally breaks down, confessing how scared she was. Sirius turns to her, his expression softening as he acknowledges her fear. He gently reassures her that everything is okay now, and they should return to the village. He pats her head and she looks up, asking if it's truly over. Her fear gives way to a massive, radiant smile as she thanks him with all her heart. Sirius returns her smile, a genuine warmth in his eyes. He looks down at his hand, feeling the light and power fading away. Sirius recalls the mysterious power he felt, realizing it must have come from Kuru. He thinks about her eyes as clear as a god's, yet holding deep sadness. Walking with Lorena, he wonders why Kuru has such a sorrowful gaze. Lorena excitedly recounts how Sirius tore through the knights who tried to capture her. Villagers praise Sirius as the hero of Waka, but he humbly denies it. He expresses his concern, doubting that the corrupt Baron Gulkosa will simply back down. An elderly man calls out to Sirius, who stands protectively beside Larina. The man, Larina's grandfather, acknowledges Sirius's worries but asks him to listen first. He offers his profound gratitude, thanking Sirius for saving his beloved granddaughter. Sirius looks at the reunited pair, simply acknowledging the thanks with a quiet yes. Kuru watches the emotional reunion, her own expression quiet and thoughtfully sad. Later that evening, a rustic village house is seen under a starry sky. Inside, Sirius's hand carefully writes a letter with a quill and ink. A soft knock at the door startles him, and he answers with a question. Kuru stands hesitantly in the doorway, offering a quiet good evening greeting. Sirius kindly invites her in from the cold, asking if she came from Suria's. She sits forlornly on a prayer mat, her posture slumped with unspoken sorrow. Sirius gently asks what is wrong, but she trails off, unable to find the words. Her troubled expression and nervous sweat reveal her deep inner turmoil and anxiety. Seeing her distress, Sirius tells her to wait just a moment, turning away. He places a plate of berry-topped pancakes before her, offering them kindly. He explains that a friend from town showed him how to make the treat. Kuru tentatively picks up one of the small pancakes, her expression curious. She takes a delicate bite, the sound barely audible in the quiet room. Her face lights up with surprise and delight as she murmurs how sweet it is. Sirius watches her with a faint, satisfied smile as she happily eats the pancakes. Taking a bite himself, he agrees that it is delicious, sharing the simple pleasure. He tells her not to worry, as he does this simply because he wants to. He glances at his letter, thinking he must someday repay the debt he owes her. Kuru, having finished, quietly thanks him for the satisfying meal. Her expression softens as she sincerely thanks him for saving Larina earlier that day. Sirius recounts his desperate fight, thinking he was going to die unnoticed. He recalls the incredible power that welled within him, asking if it was her. Kuru flinches but quietly confirms that the mysterious power was indeed hers. Sirius processes this, murmuring her name with a look of profound realization. He tells her she has saved him twice now, as he would have been killed. As he turns back to his letter, he tells her to take her time resting. She looks up, asking why he isn't questioning her about her past and secrets. He smiles gently, admitting he's curious but won't pry until she's ready to talk. Kuru looks relieved, realizing he will listen when she decides to speak. She then poses a deep question. What would he do with immense power? Sirius is completely taken aback by the sudden, weighty hypothetical question. He asks what she means by her question, his expression one of confusion. Crossing his arms, he muses on the idea of possessing such great strength. He thinks that ultimately, the things he does would probably not change much. Kuru presses him, asking if he'd want to be a hero, rich, or have a harem. He dismisses the idea of a harem or living a lavish noble's life. His simple dream is to drink and laugh with friends as an adventurer. A fond smile graces Kuru's lips as she tells him she likes that about him. She reminds him that defying the Baron has put the entire village in danger. He agrees, stating he can't imagine someone like Gulkosa would simply do nothing. She then asks him again if he won't ask about her mysterious power. He looks at her with understanding, stating that she doesn't want him to ask. Kuru is struck silent by his perception, her eyes wide with surprise. He tells her it's all right, as he won't be an adventurer much longer anyway. He turns back to his letter, his quill poised over the unfinished page. A traumatic memory flashes through Kuru's mind as she screams for help. The vision shows the brutish Gulkosa manhandling her as she struggles futilely. Gulkosa's face is a mask of rage as he orders her to be quiet. In the memory, Sirius watches helplessly, shouting for the man to stop. Kuru whimpers in terror, her face streaked with tears of pure fear. She reaches out a desperate hand, crying for her father to save her. Her anguished cry is directed at Sirius, who stands frozen in the doorway. He is stunned, realizing that in her terror, she sees him as her father. A brilliant flash of light erupts from her in response to her overwhelming fear. A psychic vortex explodes from her, sending debris flying as she screams. The invisible force rages through the room, a physical manifestation of her despair. Gulkosa, caught in the storm, screams in terror, wondering what is happening. Kuru sobs, begging her mother and father for forgiveness and help. Sirius stands firm against the psychic wind, his posture resolute and protective. He calls out to her, his voice trying to cut through her traumatic state. Reaching out his hands, he shouts that it's okay, anchoring her in the present. The image shows Kuru still held fast by Gulkosa, her eyes fixed on Sirius. The psychic wind dies down, leaving a knife clattering to the floor. Glucosa looks around the wrecked room, stunned that the supernatural gale has stopped. Sirius's eyes narrow, realizing with alarm that the immediate danger has not passed. With renewed determination, he vows that they will absolutely save her from this. He sees that Glucosa still holds a knife to Kuru, his grip tightening. The cat girl Lorena leaps into the fray, smashing a pot over Glucosa's head. The blow frees Kuru from her captor, and Sirius shouts her name. Kuru collapses, sobbing uncontrollably about how scared she was, calling for her father. Glucosa, clutching his head in pain and fury, begins to make his escape. He points a threatening finger, swearing revenge on the entire village for this. Lorena shouts that he is getting away as he runs out the door. Sirius starts to give chase but is stopped by a small hand tugging his cloak. Kuru looks up, tearfully asking if her father's going to leave her now. A profound realization dawns on Sirius. She is not a special being, just a child. He tells her that he will be right there with her wherever she is. He embraces her gently, reassuring her that she's just a little girl needing protection. Lorena reminds him of Glucosa, and he asks Kuru to come with them. He holds Kuru close, her small body clinging to him for comfort and safety. They step outside into a village street littered with incapacitated knights. The defeated men groan in pain, their armor scattered across the ground. Sirius observes that the knights are neutralized, and the fight is finally over. A flashback shows him sincerely thanking the mighty adventurer Glad for his help. He had explained that he was going to seek help for everyone involved. Glad is then struck by a blindingly fast attack, whispering "strong" as he falls. The powerful warrior is sent flying, crashing to the ground in a cloud of dust. The assailant is revealed to be a woman with sharp, incredibly intense eyes. In the present, this same woman stands calmly amidst the defeated adventurers. The young girl, Kuru, screams in terror, pleading for help and for her captor to stop. She struggles violently in the brutish nobleman's grasp, trying desperately to break free. Her captor, Glucosa, roars at her to be quiet, his face twisted with rage. From afar, Sirius shouts with horror, demanding that the man cease his assault. Overwhelmed by fear, the girl can only let out a pitiful whimpering sound. In her desperation, she reaches out a hand, wailing for her father to save her. Her plea is directed at Sirius, who stands frozen in the doorway, her last hope. A look of shock crosses Sirius's face as he realizes she sees him as a father figure. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of light erupts from the distressed young girl. Uncontrollable energy explodes from her, sending debris flying in a chaotic vortex. The magical tempest rages through the room, a physical manifestation of her anguish. Glucosa stares in wide-eyed terror, demanding to know what this incredible power is. Lost in a traumatic memory, Kuru begs her mother and father to forgive and help her. Sirius braces himself, standing firm against the powerful, supernatural gale. He shouts her name, trying to reach her through the storm of her emotions. With outstretched hands, he reassures her that everything is going to be all right. His voice acts as an anchor, her expression shifting from panic to a glimmer of hope. As the chaotic energy subsides, a fallen knife lies amidst the destroyed room. Glucosa looks around, stunned that the magical wind has suddenly stopped completely. Sirius's eyes widen with alarm and then narrow with protective fury. He declares with absolute certainty that they will save her, no matter what. The nobleman's resolve has not broken. He presses a knife against the terrified Kuru. The cat girl Lilina leaps into the fray, smashing a large jug over Glucosa's head. Sirius shouts Kuru's name, ready to move in and take advantage of the opening. Freed from her captor, Kuru collapses to the floor, sobbing about how scared she was. Clutching his head in pain, the enraged nobleman stumbles back from the attack. He points a threatening finger, swearing he'll never forgive them and will take revenge. As he makes a run for it, Lilina points after him, shouting that he is getting away. Sirius starts to give chase but is stopped by a small hand tugging on his cloak. With tear-filled eyes, Kuru asks if her father is going to leave her too. A profound understanding dawns on him. She is not special, just a normal girl. He gently tells her that he will be right there with her, wherever she is. Kneeling down, he pulls her into a warm embrace, reaffirming that she's just a little girl. Lilina reminds him of the threat, and Sirius asks the now calmer Kuru to come with them. Kuru clings to him tightly, finding safety and comfort in his protective hold. Stepping outside, they find the village square littered with unconscious knights. Glucosa's men are scattered and incapacitated, groaning in pain on the ground. Holding Kuru, Sirius realizes with surprise that the battle is already over. A flashback shows Sirius thanking the muscular warrior Grad for seeking help. Grad stands tall and confident as Sirius explains he asked for everyone's help. In a flash, Grad is struck down, his last thought being the strength of his opponent. The powerful warrior is sent flying, crashing to the ground in a cloud of dust. The assailant is revealed to be a woman with severe, beautiful, and determined eyes. This same night, Aria Scarlet now stands calmly amidst the defeated adventurers. The ground is littered with the unconscious forms of the adventurers hired by Gulkoza. She stands with commanding presence, flanked by her own loyal soldiers in uniform. Lilina stares in shock, realizing this powerful knight is not with Gulkoza's faction. One of Scarlet's soldiers holds the captured Gulkoza, who protests his innocence. He arrogantly blames Sirius and expects the high-ranking knight to be his rescuer. One of her knights informs him that they have already been briefed on the situation. Lilina panics, telling Sirius they need to run away from the powerful knights. Sirius, however, looks relieved, wondering if she managed to arrive in time. Gulkoza gloats, confidently telling Scarlet to dispense punishment on his behalf. In a blur of motion, Scarlet delivers a powerful blow that sends him flying. Her subordinate formally declares that Gulkoza's many crimes will be investigated. Sirius recognizes the subordinate knight, saying her name, Aria, in surprise. The Supreme Class Knight, Aria Scarlet, turns her attention to Sirius. She explains that she came as soon as she received his letter, apologizing for being late. She confirms the unconscious men were adventurers hired according to his letter. A flashback shows Sirius meticulously writing the letter that summoned the knights. Sirius apologizes to Aria, saying he told Grad she was coming, but he got overexcited. He thanks her profusely, overwhelmed with relief that she came to help them. Her stern demeanor softens as she declares she would do anything for his sake. Sirius laughs nervously, saying it would be trouble if anyone overheard such a joke. Thinking to herself, Aria admits that her words were not a joke at all. The red-haired Aria, her subordinate, looks at her captain with confusion. The commander explains that the powerful knight is a noble from the Scarlet family. A grand portrait reveals she is one of the 12 strongest knights, the Lances. Lilina is awestruck, exclaiming how amazing it is that he is friends with her. Sirius quietly agrees, his gaze distant as he reflects on her incredible talent. A flashback shows him meeting a young Aria at the church when she was an orphan. He recalls her prodigious talent, surpassing his own skill in just 6 months. His casual mention of her skill to the Countess led to Aria's adoption. The commander is stunned that the little girl has become a noble of the Lances. Aria blushes, thinking to herself that this man is an ally of her father. Sirius tells Kuru that Aria is someone she can trust, which Aria overhears. The commander is sent into shock, misinterpreting the word father literally. She panics, telling herself to calm down, as Sirius couldn't possibly be a real father. Sirius watches her panic, quietly understanding the source of her confusion. Her thoughts spiral, wondering if this means she must become Kururu's mother. Her vice commander Glad interrupts, reporting that Gulkoza's men are captured. Glad suggests she stay behind to catch up with her old friend Sirius. She is flustered by the suggestion, thinking that friend is not quite the right word. Glad passionately encourages her to strive to be called mother by the girl. Mortified, she realizes he and the other knights overheard her frantic thoughts. The other knights grin, reassuring her that they are all on her side. The commander worries she is a nuisance, but Sirius sincerely reassures her she is not. Glad entrusts her to Sirius, asking him to be sweet to their cute commander. A flashback shows Aria as a whirlwind of motion, effortlessly defeating her enemies. Back in the present, the commander announces it's time to get back to work. A woman in a nun's habit arrives to debrief them on the village incident. That evening, Sirius stands alone outside under a sky blanketed with stars. He reflects on the day, grateful that everyone's help ensured the villagers were safe. He watches the boisterous knights celebrating inside, Glad praising Aria's strength. Unable to rest, he wanders out into the cool, quiet night air for a walk. He sees a figure standing alone in the distance, silhouetted by the full moon. It is Aria, now in simple night clothes, her long hair unbound in the moonlight. He calls out her name, and she acknowledges him as he approaches. He explains that he couldn't sleep and decided to take a walk. Her expression becomes serious as she looks at him, ready to discuss an important matter. Under the starry sky, Aria stands with Sirius before a worn building, asking about the identity of the girl, Kuru. Aria's hand hovers near a shattered doorframe, sensing the powerful, lingering traces of magic. Her mind races, ruling out the brutish Gulkoza and the others as the source of this immense power. Sirius confirms her unasked question, stating that only Kuru remained after the incident. With a grave look, he reveals to a shocked Aria that he had suffered a nearly fatal wound just days before. A close-up on Sirius's eye reveals his memory of Kuru being the one who healed him. He recounts her incredible feats, carrying an adult, annihilating a demon, and even granting him power. Sirius concludes that the girl possesses a truly mysterious and wondrous ability, leaving Aria speechless. With a grim and serious expression, Aria flatly declares that Kuru is dangerous. Sirius quickly defends her, insisting she is a normal girl and that he can vouch for her character. Aria clarifies that the issue is her possessing such great power without any official backing. She explains that while magic exists, it's usually weak, like small fireballs or minor healing. Most nations, including their own, rely on the formidable strength of their knights, not magic. However, she gravely warns that power that is completely off the charts changes everything. Sirius realizes with horror that this means Kururu's extraordinary power will be targeted by others. Aria confirms his fears, noting that powerful nobles would surely seek to control her. She continues that even other nations would not hesitate to try and acquire such an asset. As a solution, she proposes entrusting Kuru to a local church affiliated with the Knights Order. She apologizes, knowing it's painful to suggest this, given how attached Kuru is to him. With a determined look, Sirius realizes he cannot protect Kuru with his own power. His mind flashes to an image of Kuru crying alone by a grave, understanding her deep loneliness. He seriously questions whether entrusting her to others is truly the right thing to do. Under the full moon, he resolves to think carefully about the best path forward for Kururu's sake. The quiet of the night settles over the roof of the rustic house where they are staying. Inside, Kururu's eyes snap open in her bed, as if sensing something amiss. She sits up, alerted, and looks across the dimly lit room. Kuru sees the still form of Sirius sleeping peacefully in a nearby bed. A hazy, warm memory of his protective embrace flashes through her mind. She reaches out a hand, gently touching his sleeping face with her fingertips. With a soft, vulnerable expression, she whispers the single, heartfelt word, "Father." Sirius stirs from his sleep, mumbling her name, which startles her into a state of comical shock. She stammers frantically, but he calmly tells her that it's okay and to calm down. With a shy blush on her cheeks, Kuru begins to explain her feelings. Sitting beside him on the bed, she admits she had always wondered what having a father would be like. She vaguely recalls her own father dying when she was very young, unable to remember his face. However, she notes that the one memory she has of him is of his kindness. A flashback shows her watching other children with their fathers, wishing for that same protection. She confesses that, because Sirius protects her so well, she just ended up calling him that. Sirius looks at her with a gentle, understanding smile, acknowledging her heartfelt confession. The cat girl Lilina bursts in, profusely apologizing for getting injured and causing trouble again. Sirius reassures her with a kind smile that she is not a bother at all. Kuru turns to Sirius, declaring that he must understand she has great power. He agrees, acknowledging she is strong enough to send a man like Golkoza flying. She then confesses that despite having this power, she is still terribly afraid. A traumatic memory shows Golkoza holding her captive, leaving her feeling utterly helpless. She felt that asking for help would be useless and a burden to others. Sirius explains that this time, he couldn't have succeeded alone. Many people came to help him. He tells her that what's truly important is not feeling bad about being helped. He continues that one shouldn't take that help for granted or as a given. He concludes that the most important thing is to believe in living by helping each other. Kuru's eyes reflect his words as she whispers, "helping each other," to herself. She looks down, hesitantly asking if it is truly okay for her to be saved. Sirius beams at her, declaring with absolute certainty, "Of course!" A close-up on Kuru's eye reveals a powerful thought. This person might be different. She clenches her fists, steeling her resolve to tell him her incredible, true story. She reveals she is actually 15 and was reincarnated from another world by a god. Sirius is utterly stunned into silence by this fantastical revelation. He quickly understands, noting that this explains her surprising maturity. He looks at her, telling her earnestly that he believes her story without a single doubt. He thinks to himself that he never suspected her, despite it sounding like a fantasy novel. Kuru had been terrified of being rejected for telling such an unbelievable tale. Yet she felt a deep certainty that this person, Sirius, would surely believe her. With tears welling in her eyes, she resolves to tell him everything about her past. Her memories reveal a painful past, a screaming mother, debt collectors, and cruel school bullies. The most cutting memory is her mother wishing she had never been born, making her feel like she was in hell. Her previous life ended abruptly one rainy day when she was hit by a truck. She recalls laughing at the absurd, pathetic, and meaningless end to her life. She expresses how utterly foolish and ridiculous her sudden death felt. After dying, she met a god who promised she would be happy in her next life. The god also promised that someone who would make her happy would surely find her. But she was reborn in a monster-filled forest, immediately attacked and finding the god's blessing meaningless. She screams in despair, believing that in the end, her fate would be the same. She recounts how painful, scary, and overwhelmingly lonely it all was. Sirius listens with deep empathy, his eyes reflecting the pain of her story. She admits that when he vowed to protect her, she just wanted him to run away. She cries out that she believes she was an unwanted child, unworthy of being saved. Sirius closes the distance between them and pulls her into a firm, comforting embrace. Kuru is startled for a moment before completely melting into his secure hold. She sobs, confessing she always wanted someone to hold her and help her forget her pain. Sirius gently pats her back, a simple, grounding gesture of pure comfort and acceptance. Through her tears, she cries that she wanted to be spoiled and praised like a child. She wails with cathartic release, affirming that it is okay for her to be there. Holding her close, Sirius gives her a powerful and heartfelt command, then be happy. Later that night, a profound quiet settles over the roof of the village house. Kuru, emotionally and physically exhausted, has finally cried herself to sleep. Sirius sits by her bed, watching over her as she rests peacefully in his lap. He hopes that he can somehow help her forget all her painful memories. He gently takes her small hand in his, feeling the immense weight of her trust. He reflects that while he can't fully understand her story, he feels her suffering keenly. For Kuru's sake, he resolves that placing her under a powerful person's protection is the best option. Yet he feels he must protect her fragile heart himself, and that there must be something he can do. As he thinks, Kuru stirs in her sleep, snuggling closer into his lap. He looks down at her with a reassuring expression, telling her that it's okay. Stroking her hair gently, he whispers a solemn promise that he is on her side. He looks out the window, planning to consult with various people when they return to town. A flicker of light from the distant forest catches his eye, making him wonder if it's his imagination. He remembers she said she was born in that specific forest, Yamukan Forest. He questions why she would be born in such a monster-infested place. He ponders if there is some deeper, hidden meaning behind the god's actions. The sharp, sudden crack of a twig snapping outside breaks the silence of the night. Under the bright full moon, glowing motes of light drift upwards from the forest floor. The Knight Commander, Aria, gently suggests that the young girl can call her Mother. With a look of utter shock, Kuru emphatically rejects the surprising proposition. As their carriage travels, a pouting Aria laments Kuru's refusal to call her mother. Sirius gazes out the window, relieved that the village of Waka is now safe. He reflects on his decision to confront Baron Golkoza, which prevented the village's ruin. An elder villager remembers how their village was nearly destroyed by that man's greed. The villagers praise Sirius, saying his actions brought a bright and hopeful future to them. A cat-eared girl explains that everyone in the village is deeply grateful for his kindness. Relieved that everyone is safe, Sirius suggests it's time for them to get going. Inside the carriage, Aria desperately pleads to be called Mother, even just once. Sirius gently chides Aria for forcing the issue on a reluctant Kuru. Leaning out the carriage door, Sirius announces that they have finally arrived at their destination. The driver confirms their arrival, telling the two passengers that they are here. Peering out, Kuru lets out a gasp of pure astonishment at the sight before her. A massive, fortified city looms, promising both danger and security for its inhabitants. The city of Garland is introduced as a bulwark against the monsters of the West. It is a bustling, impregnable city where countless adventurers and merchants gather. Overwhelmed by the sheer number of people, Kuru lets out a small cry of shock. A massive, menacing man glares at Sirius, who notes the hostile gaze is on him. The imposing figure's face is a mask of pure intimidation as he stares them down. Sirius calmly observes that the city's public order seems to be a bit lacking. Aria announces her departure, thanking Sirius for his help on their recent endeavor. She apologizes to Kuru for trying to force her to call her by a motherly title. With a sudden burst of emotion, Aria opens her arms wide, pleading for a hug. Her plea is met with a flat refusal, causing her to collapse in dramatic defeat. Kuru, completely bewildered, asks Sirius if Aria wishes to marry him. Sirius is left stammering and speechless by the girl's blunt and surprising question. He explains that Aria is the daughter of a great noble family, not just an adventurer. Sirius states firmly that Aria is a precious friend who deserves to find a good person. Now prostrate on the ground, Sirius wonders aloud what has gotten into his friend. Kuru watches the bizarre scene unfold, her expression one of utter confusion. She approaches the defeated Aria, who is moping on the cobblestones. Gently, Kuru gives the dejected knight a comforting hug from behind to cheer her up. Kuru looks up at Aria, her expression thoughtful as she considers the situation. She cleverly proposes that she might consider it if Aria continues to help Sirius. Instantly re-energized, Aria scoops Kuru into a powerful, celebratory hug. She tells Sirius she can't take her eyes off him since he always finds trouble. With a final farewell, she cheerfully says she will see them again soon. Aria strides off into the crowd, waving goodbye as she disappears from sight. Sirius then turns to Kuru, suggesting that it's time for them to go as well. Kuru is filled with wonder, exclaiming that this is a true fantasy world. Pointing at various sites, she excitedly asks Sirius what everything is. A pot suddenly tumbles from a high shelf, heading for the ground. With incredible speed, Sirius snatches the falling object from the air, saving it. The shopkeeper apologizes for the near accident, impressed by Sirius's quick reflexes. Recognizing him, the merchant exclaims that it's been too long and he was worried. As a gift, he hands Sirius a large leafy pole fruit, confirming its identity. The merchant is relieved the fruit wasn't sold as Kuru curiously peeks out. He then notices the small girl with Sirius and asks who she is. Sirius explains that he is in town for a quest, which the merchant understands. The shopkeeper laughs, insisting Sirius take a basket of fruit as thanks for his help. Sirius offers a fruit to Kuru, noting how kind everyone in town is. She quietly agrees, holding the fruit and marveling at the town's warmth. A woman at a nearby stall greets Sirius warmly, asking about the cute child with him. Another adventurer waves, saying it's been a while, and they must go for drinks again. A group of elderly people thanks Sirius for his help as he clears a path for them. A small child runs past, happily shouting thanks to Big Brother Sirius. Kuru is amazed, wondering just how much everyone in town adores Sirius. He has been greeted by 20 or 30 people, more than any special ability. They finally arrive at a large building, the Adventurers Guild, and head inside. Kuru braces herself, expecting a frightening den of rough men like in her novels. Sensing her apprehension, Sirius gently takes her small hand in his. He pushes open the heavy doors, announcing that he has returned. Inside, a group of tough-looking adventurers glare at them with hostility. The tension breaks instantly as they all erupt in a warm, boisterous welcome. Kuru is stunned, thinking this is like a fan meet and greet, not a guild. She realizes his popularity is the result of his accumulated good deeds. The adventurers explain that helping him is just their way of repaying their debts. She understands the incredible power of acting for the sake of others. His influence is far more amazing than any knowledge from her past life. The warmth of his hand, which has helped so many, feels profoundly special. At the counter, a cheerful receptionist named Ellen welcomes Sirius back. Sirius introduces Kuru to Ellen, the kind receptionist who helps them out. Ellen kneels, telling Kuru she can ask her for help with anything. With a sly smile, Ellen then suggests that Kuru can also call her Mother. Kuru is completely taken aback by this second, unexpected maternal proposition. Ellen thinks this is her chance to get closer to Sirius by winning Kuru over. Kuru realizes Ellen's affection for Sirius is more parental than romantic. She decides she wants to support Sirius's happiness, but his feelings come first. Sirius wonders why both Aria and Ellen want to be called mother instead of sister. Ellen watches them, thinking they look just like a real parent and child. She sees this as her chance to be accepted by Kuru and get closer to Sirius. Sirius is still considering his options, discussing them with the guild members. He tells an official he's thinking of asking the South District Church for a favor. The official is surprised, knowing Aria's trust is placed there. Sirius asks if his request is impossible, but the official has other concerns. Kuru worries about the approaching winter and her difficult living situation. She thanks Sirius for his concern, but fears she is becoming a burden to him. She realizes this isn't her modern world. Survival here is a constant struggle. Feeling guilty for her own selfish hopes, she resolves to act for his sake. She decides to act for another's sake, just like Sirius does, and reaches for him. With newfound determination, Kuru declares that she wants to live in a church. She wonders aloud what kind of beautiful place it might be, lost in thought. Suddenly, the guild doors are thrown open, and a figure crashes to the floor. A drunken adventurer holds a bottle, his voice slurring as he enters. The massive, muscular Bakazan bellows that he has come to test his worth. Sirius recognizes the man from the street, noting he is even larger than Grad. One of his companions asks if Sirius knows the man, who came from the east. Another man explains that the A-rank adventurer is on a drunken rampage. A hulking, drunken adventurer named Bakuzan questions who has just entered the tavern. The massive man looms over Sirius and his companions, aggressively demanding their rank. Sirius calmly states that he is merely a C-rank adventurer. Leaning in close, Bakuzan sneers that he will now test the boy's guts. Sirius remains completely unfazed by the aggressive, drunken provocation. A worried Ellen cries out, trying to stop Sirius from continuing the confrontation. He offers the large man a flask of water, telling him he has had enough. Bakuzan invites them to sit, bizarrely recommending against the house's bird roast. Another adventurer with an eye patch smugly asks if Sirius has business with them. Bakuzan's expression twists into a mask of pure rage, believing he is being disrespected. With a furious roar, he brings his massive broadsword crashing down onto the table. A large splinter of wood flies through the air, striking Sirius hard in the head. His companions cry out his name in terror and immediately rush towards him. Dazed and dizzy, Sirius stumbles to his knees amidst the wreckage of the table. He looks around the room, taking in the sudden, strange shift in the atmosphere. The other adventurers erupt in cheers, triumphantly declaring that their contract is now void. Utterly bewildered by this turn of events, Bakuzan demands to know what is happening. The ringleader of the group explains the bizarre ruse to a stunned Sirius and his friends. A thought bubble shows one of the men recalling the guild's rule about fighting weaker opponents. The shattered table symbolizes the broken contract, which has been nullified by Sirius's injury. Kuru questions how they could be so confident against a strong A-rank adventurer. Bakuzan is shown to be a B-rank adventurer, but he is challenged by another man. Sirius explains that Garland's dangerous location forges adventurers stronger than their rank. A flashback panel shows a hardened Garland adventurer fiercely battling a monstrous wolf. He clarifies that a B-rank from their city is as strong as an S-rank elsewhere. Another image shows their true strength, which is comparable even to ordinary knights. Sirius sheepishly admits he allowed himself to be hit to test their character. Kuru realizes he possesses more than enough strength to have easily avoided the blow. She understands now that the other men were fighting for a very specific reason. Bakuzan pants, a look of dawning horror spreading across his face. One of the men taunts him, saying they wouldn't have held back otherwise. Sirius looks on with a cold, disapproving expression, disgusted by their methods. With his companions standing behind him, he declares that they hurt his friend. The word friend sends the massive Bakuzan into a state of shocked torment. His face contorts in anguish as the full weight of his humiliation crashes down. The other adventurers trying to save face begin to comically beat up Bakuzan. They declare that Bakuzan must let them get a hit in as well. The scene descends into a chaotic pile-on as they claim it's for Sirius's sake. They drag a dizzy Sirius into their bizarre and confusing celebratory brawl. Amidst the chaos, Ellen points out a strange, discolored mark on Bakuzan's neck. Kuru looks closer and recognizes the strange patch as the effect of Plu poison. Sirius confirms her suspicion, revealing that Bakuzan was ill and poisoned all along. Kuru recalls that the leaves of the Plu plant are highly toxic to the touch. Sirius explains the poison, called Knight's Bane, drains physical strength and stamina. Bakuzan finally realizes he never stood a chance against the local guild members. A flashback shows rumors of his illness spreading while doctors were unable to help. He confesses he was desperate to prove himself and restore his failing reputation. Sirius kneels before the despairing man, reassuring him that he can be cured. He reveals that he has been searching for the necessary antidote in the West. Bakuzan stares at the boy's gentle smile, utterly stunned by this act of kindness. Tears well in his eyes as he wonders why he is being shown such compassion. Overcome with emotion, Bakuzan lets out a loud cathartic cry of profound gratitude. Kuru marvels at Sirius's ability to show such kindness even to his enemies. She wonders why he doesn't just go to a place he knows instead of here. Her gaze softens with a newfound admiration and a deep burgeoning resolve. She wants to know the real him, not the version she was taught about. Looking at him earnestly, she confesses her deep desire to be with him. The other adventurers watch a surprisingly tender moment unfold in the tavern. With a gentle smile, Sirius acknowledges her feelings and extends his hand to her. She places her small hand in his, sealing their new, deeper bond. A blissful, serene smile spreads across her face as she feels its comforting warmth. Later, Sirius carries the exhausted girl through the quiet evening streets. Kuru, sleepy but content, tells him that she is feeling all right now. She asks what kind of person this Marini is whom they are going to meet. Sirius describes Mary as someone who is large and has a great capacity for care. Their smaller companion, Roos, imagines a buxom, kind, and motherly woman. Kuru, clinging to Sirius, vows to see if Mari is a worthy partner for him. They arrive at the inn, their purpose to ensure Sirius finds his own happiness. Sirius pushes open the door, announcing his return to Marini. An impossibly muscular man in a frilly apron bursts out, welcoming them home. Kururu's eyes go wide, her mind short-circuiting in a state of utter shock. From inside the inn, a cheerful voice calls out Sirius's name with affection. The impossibly muscular maid, Mari, greets them with a dazzling, heartfelt smile. Mari expresses his relief that Sirius is okay after hearing he was injured. He then turns his attention to the rumored child who is accompanying Sirius. His face lights up with adoration as he exclaims how unbelievably cute Kuru is. Kuru squeezes her eyes shut as Mari gently and playfully pinches her cheeks. Noticing her exhaustion, Mari kindly tells Sirius to take her upstairs to rest. The young girl is soon tucked snugly into a warm bed, fast asleep. Downstairs, Mari notes that the events at Waka village were quite serious. Sirius presents a small pouch of coins, offering to pay for their stay. Mari reassures him, saying the number of rooms won't change, but funds are limited. The 2 mugs of ale on the table signal the start of a serious conversation. Mari explains that he sensed a deep, profound sadness hidden within Kururu's heart. He tells Sirius he understands, as both men and women have known such darkness. With a knowing look, he advises Sirius to face her difficult issues head-on. He firmly grips Sirius's shoulder, promising that they are all on his side. A large adventurer slams his mug down on the table in hearty agreement. With a fiery grin, he bellows that, as a man, Sirius must protect her. Swept up in the moment, Sirius shouts his enthusiastic agreement to the challenge. Mari watches with a fond smile as Sirius chugs from a mug in celebration. The young boy is startled by a sudden panicked scream from upstairs. A nightmare vision shows a door bursting inward, throwing them violently backward. In the dream, a younger Kuru, her face streaked with tears, screams for her father. She wakes to find Sirius comforting her, saying it was just a bad dream. The dream was a whirlwind of hateful voices and falling into a bottomless abyss. Sirius looks at the still shaken girl with gentle and complete understanding. He suggests they sleep holding hands so she won't feel like she's falling. Kuru timidly asks if that would be okay, and Mari appears on the stairs. They move towards the bed together to get some much-needed rest. In the quiet of their room, Sirius sleeps peacefully as Kuru lies awake beside him. Clutching his hand, she marvels at how real and gentle he feels to her. Sirius remains completely asleep, unaware of the small girl's watchful presence. With a quiet whisper, she wishes him good night and finally drifts into a peaceful slumber. The next morning, Sirius is woken by small hands persistently poking his cheeks. Groggily opening his eyes, he finds Kuru sitting on his chest, another girl watching. Kuru shuffles shyly, mumbling his name while he looks on, still half asleep. With newfound courage, she puffs out her cheeks and shouts a loud morning greeting. She then instructs the still drowsy Sirius to wash his face so they can eat. Downstairs, the flamboyant innkeeper Mary booms a cheerful, "Good morning," while serving breakfast. Leaning in close, he mischievously asks Sirius if he received a proper greeting yesterday. With a laugh, Mary tells Sirius to feel free to call him Mary-chan. Kuru, watching this, feels a pang of guilt for her rudeness the day before. Taking a determined step forward, she prepares to make a formal introduction. She bows deeply, introducing herself as Kuru and asking him to please look after her. Mary takes a sharp, dramatic breath, completely overcome by her adorable gesture. He erupts with a roar, exclaiming how unbelievably cute she is, much to her shock. After a hearty meal, Mary encourages them to eat well before heading out for work. At the bustling Adventurers Guild, Sirius is handed a new request form. He thanks Ellen at the counter, with Kuru standing faithfully by his side. Turning to Kuru, Sirius asks if she would like to come along on his job. He reassures her that it is just a simple and safe task helping someone in town. As they walk, Sirius mentions that the rowdy adventurer, Bakuzan, is actually quite gentle. Kuru expresses her surprise while Sirius smiles, noting yesterday was just a bad day. His attention is suddenly caught by a detail he notices on Bakuzan from a distance. He focuses on the teardrop-shaped stone hanging from a cord around Bakuzan's neck. Bakuzan explains he pulled an all-nighter and is officially starting over at the guild. Curious about the ornament, Kuru asks Sirius what the stone is. Sirius proudly holds up his own, explaining it is the guild's proof of an adventurer. Kuru eagerly asks if she can get one, but Ellen explains it's unprecedented for her age. A fire of determination ignites in Kuru's eyes as she resolves to be recognized. She imagines being like Sirius, accepted and laughing alongside the other adventurers. For her, this next quest has become the first crucial step on her own path. With a cheerful, "Okay," swing, Kuru enthusiastically agrees to accompany Sirius on his next job. They arrive at a dilapidated two-story house with a gnarled, menacing tree looming over it. Kuru nervously wonders if this is the witch's house they are supposed to visit. An old scarred woman named Lars greets Sirius, confirming Kuru's fear that she's a witch. Lars's sharp, assessing gaze falls upon the small blonde girl from beneath her hood. Kuru flinches under the intense scrutiny, a bead of sweat forming on her face. The old woman remarks that Sirius has brought yet another strange child with him this time. She notes that Kuru is far from ordinary and brusquely tells them to come inside. At the doorway, Kuru hesitates, her voice catching in her throat from intimidation. Inside, Sirius announces they will begin their usual cleaning amidst the overwhelming mess. Lars tells Sirius he doesn't need to bother cleaning the area by her chair. A strange, beautifully spired object rests on a high shelf in the cluttered room. Noticing the object, Kuru wonders what it is, thinking it looks like a pretty shell. The old woman turns to Kuru, her voice sharp as she asks if she'll help clean. Lars's gaze intensifies as she warns the girl that this is not a playground. Though frightened by the warning, Kuru stammers that she will do her absolute best. As she leaves, Lars tells them not to overdo it, disappearing into another room. Sirius rolls up his sleeves with a grin, ready to tackle the big job with Kuru. He starts by efficiently tying up a box of junk, moving with practiced ease. With a blur of motion, Sirius begins dusting the cluttered surfaces of the room. The scene reveals him working like a whirlwind, leaving Kuru utterly stunned by his speed. She marvels at his skill, comparing him to a charismatic housekeeper, while he explains he's been coming for 10 years. Determined to help, Kuru struggles to lift a small stack of books, grunting with effort. She asks why an adventurer is cleaning, as she imagined them fighting monsters outdoors. Sirius explains that this kind of work is very important for novice adventurers. Kuru questions if house cleaning is really what he means, and he starts to clarify. Their conversation is interrupted as Lars calls out Sirius's name from another room. She asks him to bring her a bundle of herbs, and he thanks her as he retrieves them. He explains that before the guild took these jobs, the adventurer death rate was very high. A flashback shows novices struggling, ill-equipped for dangerous quests they were forced to take. A look of dawning realization crosses Kuru's face as she asks what that has to do with odd jobs. Sirius explains these requests help novices earn money, build connections, and ultimately lower the death rate. A light bulb goes off for Kuru as Sirius confirms this was a system he established himself. A flashback shows Sirius smiling, realizing this system of jobs was his own creation. Memories reveal a younger Sirius constantly helping the townspeople with their daily tasks. Kuru understands that because of him, the guild now handles miscellaneous requests. She thinks the timing was perfect, though Sirius seems unaware of his own impact. Gazing at the quiet house, Kuru is filled with awe, thinking he is an amazing person. In the storeroom, Sirius announces that all that's left is to wipe everything down. He tells Kuru he is taking out the trash and will wash up, and she acknowledges him. Left alone, Kuru feels useless, knowing Sirius did almost everything, and she is not used to her power. A spark of determination hits her as she resolves to use her magic to help. She raises her hand, which begins to glow with a soft, ethereal light. A heavy box lifts from a shelf, enveloped in the same aura, floating effortlessly. A triumphant smile spreads across her face as she thinks she can finally be useful. A traumatic memory of being called useless shatters her concentration with a psychic shock. The floating box begins to tremble and shake violently as she loses her focus. Panicking, she cries out, asking why this is happening and desperately trying to stop it. The box plummets from the air, crashing hard onto the wooden floor below. The impact is devastating, and the delicate object inside shatters into a dozen pieces. Kuru stares in wide-eyed horror at the destruction she has caused. Sinking to her knees, she trembles, wondering what she's going to do now. A furious voice roars at her not to touch the broken pieces. The old woman, Larsa, shoves past Kuru, her face a mask of pure rage. Frozen with fear, Kuru can only stammer out a quiet, terrified apology. Larsa kneels protectively over the broken fragments, her back to the girl. Sirius returns, cheerfully announcing his arrival, and Kuru turns to him, startled. Seeing the tense scene, Sirius asks what happened, but Larsa curtly dismisses him. The old woman stalks out of the room, leaving a heavy silence behind her. Sirius and Kuru are left alone, both looking on with concern and confusion. Sirius gently pats Kuru's head, telling her she must be tired and should rest. Sitting alone, Kuru is lost in miserable thoughts, feeling she only gets in the way. She knows her current state is not enough and that she has to change. Her gaze falls upon Sirius, who is diligently scrubbing the floorboards with a rag. Watching him work, a powerful thought crystallizes in her mind. She wants to be like him. A memory of his earnest words about helping others fills her with a new resolve. A determined Kuru, eyes shadowed, clenches her fist, vowing to succeed without her special power. With a surge of resolve, the young girl clenches her dress, believing she can do it. Her grip tightens around her waist, a physical manifestation of her newfound purpose. Standing tall, she calls out to Sirius, insisting that he let her help too. Hearing her determined cry, Sirius looks back at her with a surprised expression. His surprise melts into a radiant smile as he happily agrees to her request. He delegates the floor to Kuru while he tackles the higher places. She throws herself into the task, scrubbing the floorboards with intense vigor. From a nearby doorway, the old woman Larsa watches them work in silence. After a long day, Sirius praises their work while Kuru lies on the floor, exhausted. He jokes that the room is so clean it will last a month, startling the tired girl. Larsa appears, amazed at how thoroughly they cleaned, and announces she is there. She comments that the job is finished with no room for complaint. The old woman then holds out a small vial, telling Kuru to drink it. Kuru hesitates, but Larsa explains that it is a potion to suppress magic. She elaborates that Kuru's overflowing magic runs wild due to her emotions. Larsa calls it a reward for her hard work and urges her to drink it. Sirius watches the exchange with a proud and gentle smile. With quiet resolve, Kuru stares at the potion she holds in her hands. She downs the entire vial in one gulp without further hesitation. Immediately after, she bows deeply, shouting a heartfelt apology. Larsa is shocked as Kuru confesses to breaking her precious item. Kuru asks if it was something that the old woman had kept carefully. The old woman clarifies she only yelled because she feared Kuru might get cut. She admits it's her own fault for leaving the already broken item out. Larsa explains that it's a kaikoto, a magical tool that records sound. Kuru asks the surprised Larsa if she can borrow the broken object. She confidently states that since she drank the potion, she won't fail this time. Larsa wordlessly places the shattered fragments into Kuru's waiting hands. Closing her eyes, Kuru focuses her restorative power on the pieces she holds. In a brilliant flash of light, the magical instrument reassembles itself perfectly. A beautiful melody begins to play, and Sirius stares in utter amazement. The sweet, ethereal music flows from the repaired instrument, filling the room. Larsa whispers that it's a beautiful song from when she was young. A memory shows a younger Larsa buying the item as a souvenir with a loved one. She recalls the peaceful time spent listening to him play the instrument. Larsa explains he passed away before Sirius arrived, and the music stopped then. Tears well in her eyes as she expresses disbelief at hearing the song again. She gently caresses Kuru's cheek, thanking her with profound gratitude. Kuru blushes and gives a small nod, her eyes shimmering with emotion. Sirius looks on, his heart swelling with pride and happiness for his friend. The scene transitions, marking the end of their visit. Walking away from the house, Sirius asks how her first job was. She admits it was tough, but a small smile begins to form. With a radiant grin, she exclaims that it was incredibly fun. Kuru is already excited to get her guild card and take on her next job. Days later, Larsa shows Kuru rare, sparkling almond seeds. The old woman notes the seeds are rare, and that Kuru seems much happier. Kuru clenches her fists, declaring her intent to get her guild card today. Larsa mentions that the guild's official certification of the job was a big help. A week later, Kuru is a familiar face, warmly greeted by the townspeople. A woman quietly asks Sirius if there's anything he can do to help Kuru. Kuru overhears their whispering, wondering if it's about her. Sirius is lost in thought, pondering the woman's words with a questioning look. Larsa cheerfully calls for them to hurry to the guild. At the guild counter, Kuru lets out a heavy sigh of disappointment. She learns from the receptionist that her request for a certificate was denied. Sirius asks why she was refused, but the official can only apologize. The official, Roy, states that the guild's credibility is at stake. Sirius explains that Roy is the one in charge of the certificates. Kuru wonders aloud if all of her hard work was for nothing. Seeing her dejection, Sirius stops and turns to face her. He tells her he has felt that same futility many times over the years. He assures her that someone is always watching, so her efforts aren't in vain. In town, a man asks if they want a guild certificate, boasting about his district. At the quest board, Sirius points out a recommended request. He suggests a quest for Isabelle's shop, a place they haven't been to. He asks if she'd like to try being a shopkeeper, and she eagerly agrees. She declares her intention to do her best as a shopkeeper for the day. They arrive at a handsome two-story establishment where a voice welcomes them. A cheerful blonde woman, Isabelle, greets them with an enthusiastic laugh. She welcomes them, already knowing Kururu's name and offering her help. Both Sirius and Kuru are shocked, wondering how she knows about them. Isabelle reveals the rumor that Sirius found an angel and adopted her. Kuru recalls people calling her an angel, while Isabelle sees it as just a cute story. Seeing the rumor as an opportunity, Isabelle hands Kuru a folded outfit. They emerge in matching shopkeeper uniforms, much to Kuru's delight. Kuru is ecstatic, thinking the shopkeeper uniform is the coolest thing ever. Isabelle compliments them on how well the outfits suit them both. Kuru happily mutters the similar-sounding words for shopkeeper and angel. Sirius questions the costumes as they weren't in the main quest description. Isabelle points out the tiny fine print about the possibility of costumes. A town crier announces the Angel Shan's special appearance at the shop. Sirius realizes Isabelle hired the crier through a guild quest. Isabelle explains to the first-class adventurer that she is using the guild system. She laughs, stating she'd never let a juicy rumor go to waste. Sirius and Kuru stand together, ready for the busy day ahead. The shop's exterior stands proudly in the bustling town. In an instant, the shop is flooded with a massive crowd of customers. The patrons are enchanted, calling her the rumored angel and vowing to buy more. Isabelle watches with satisfaction, thinking her plan is a huge success. She muses that she couldn't pass up the chance to exploit the girl's appeal. Kuru thanks a pair of adventurers with a radiant, genuine smile. The gruff adventurers are moved to tears by her earnestness and thank her in return. Sirius admits to himself that he misjudged her, thinking the work would be too much. Kuru states that she wanted to do this and wants to be a proper shopkeeper. Sirius looks at her with newfound respect, seeing her unwavering determination. He playfully orders her to restock the second floor, and she eagerly complies. Kuru thinks that, while it's different than she imagined, she will do her best. Her sharp eyes catch sight of a new customer approaching. A frail, hooded old man shuffles forward, trembling from head to toe. Dressed as an angel shopkeeper, Kuru kindly approaches a hooded man, asking if he needs help. The frail elderly man explains he is searching for a potion to ease his back pain. Kuru happily presents the correct potion, earning the man's stammered gratitude. The shopkeeper Isabelle playfully pinches Kuru's cheek, questioning her actions with a smile. Leaning in close, Isabelle playfully scolds Kuru, telling her that's not how it's done. Isabelle explains her ruthless business philosophy of haggling to maximize profits from customers. An adventurer with an afro angrily complains about Isabelle refusing to buy his old herbs. Other customers lament being overcharged for new items and receiving insincere customer service. The customer's irritation melts away as they notice the rumored angel, Kuru. Kuru maintains a sweet smile but inwardly questions if this is the right way to behave. A young girl approaches the counter, her mind set on what a shopkeeper should be. The little girl points at a display, excitedly asking Kuru what the items are. Holding a hair clip, the girl sadly notes she only has 7 copper coins. Annoyed, Isabelle watches the exchange, noting the girl has 7 coins but is a nuisance. Kuru, with a surprisingly shrewd smile, declares the hair clip costs 10 copper coins. The girl looks crestfallen, but Kuru offers to include one of her own treasures. Kuru smiles sweetly, thinking of the rare insect-like shed skin she will offer. Suddenly, Kuru forcefully shoves the little girl, sending her tumbling to the floor. Kuru's eyes widen in utter shock and confusion at her own unexpected action. The girl's mother rushes to her side, asking if she's all right after being pushed down. The girl clutches the junk treasure, looking up at her mother with worried eyes. Isabelle coldly tells the girl she'll sell her the clip if she brings money back. Kuru watches silently as the disheartened mother and daughter leave the shop empty-handed. A close-up reveals Sirius's hand, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. Kuru sits outside, wiping sweat from her brow, utterly exhausted from the day's events. She tries to force a smile for her customers, but her face crumples into a sob. Sirius notices her exhaustion and tells her to take a well-deserved break. Isabelle reluctantly agrees, granting Kuru a short 30-minute break from work. While Kuru sobs on a bench outside, she notices a small figure approaching her. The little girl from the shop finds her, asking if Angel-chan is all right. The girl asks if Kuru was unable to sell her the item, to which she sadly agrees. The mother explains her sick older daughter had really wanted the pretty hair clip. She had hoped the small gift might help cheer up her now ill older daughter. They had tried to ask the shopkeeper, but feared the item would be sold out. Kuru realizes the family was completely ignored, a feeling she knows all too well. She reflects on being ignored by others, feeling as if she wasn't even there. Sirius's voice echoes in her mind, reminding her that hard work is always noticed. Realizing this, she clenches her small fist, determined not to give up. She reassures the girl that even if things are different, it will be all right. Isabelle appears, vowing to watch over Kuru and become her strength. The girl thanks her, but Kuru is still unsure how she can possibly help. Kuru frets, dismissing the idea of using magic or asking Sirius for help. The elf shopkeeper encourages her to think carefully about what she can do. Examining her treasure, Kuru notices a small crack forming on the stone surface. A brilliant idea strikes Kuru as her eyes widen in sudden realization. The elf asks where she found the stone. Kuru says her father brought it. She recalls him saying they were plentiful in a forest on a southern island. The elf asks if she would truly part with her treasure for a simple hair tie. With fierce determination, Kuru declares that her treasure is not junk at all. She asks them to wait, promising to return before the hair tie is sold. She runs frantically into the street, desperately praying she will make it in time. Back at the shop, a customer wonders where the little Angel-chan has gone. Isabelle seethes with fury, angry that Kuru escaped just as her break ended. A panting Kuru stumbles back into the shop, asking if the hair tie is available. Isabelle snaps at her, demanding to know where she has been and causing trouble. Isabelle mockingly presents 10 coins, demanding to know where a child got them. Kuru proudly explains it was thanks to the other girl's round stone treasure. She explains that the stone was actually a nut with a hard stone-like shell. She sold the valuable almond seeds inside to the shop run by Grandma Lars. Isabelle is stunned, realizing Kuru was late just for the sake of a sale. Isabelle erupts in fury over such a small, insignificant amount of money. She screams that she lost far more potential profit while Kuru was away. Raising her hand to strike, she screams that she is the client and must be obeyed. Kuru flinches and squeezes her eyes shut, bracing for the painful blow. Sirius suddenly appears, catching Isabelle's wrist and stopping her attack cold. He calmly informs her that assaulting him was not part of the quest agreement. The crowd murmurs, shocked that Isabelle was about to strike the little angel. Onlookers are horrified by Isabelle's cruel actions, scolding her for her behavior. The adventurer with the afro storms in, complaining of a terrible stomach ache. He furiously accuses Isabelle of selling him bad herbs, causing his quest to fail. A night arrives, announcing an investigation into illegal sales based on an anonymous tip. Isabelle lets out a groan of utter despair as her situation rapidly unravels. She tries to deflect blame, but her customers abandon her shop for good. Sirius quietly reveals to a shocked Kuru that he made the anonymous tip. He had spoken with a night acquaintance after sensing something was amiss at the shop. The little girl happily thanks Angel-chan for helping her buy the hair clip. Kuru shyly denies being an angel, but the girl insists that she is one. Kuru reflects that the true angel was the kind shopkeeper who believed in her. As Sirius places a gentle hand on her head, Kuru finally lets her tears fall. Sirius watches from a distance as Kuru walks away with the grateful girl. Sometime later, Sirius arrives back at the Adventurers Guild, announcing his return. The receptionist rushes to him, her arms overflowing with a massive pile of scrolls. She explains they are all requests for Kuru, whose fame has spread rapidly. A hooded figure steps from the crowd, remarking on how quickly things have progressed. Sirius and Kuru are surprised to see the hooded figure is the old man from the shop. Kuru peeks out from behind the man's cloak, her expression filled with confusion. She stares up at the familiar figure, her eyes wide with utter bewilderment. Sirius and the receptionist look on, both completely stunned by the man's appearance. He presents her with an official guild proof, leaving her to stammer in disbelief. The man pulls down his hood, beginning to reveal his true identity. It is Roy, the guild official, revealing he was disguised as the old man. Sirius is shocked, questioning why Roy was at the shop in such a disguise. Roy explains he was conducting an undercover investigation to see her work firsthand. He was deeply impressed, stating her work was more than enough proof of her worth. Sirius proudly and officially welcomes Kuru to the Adventurers Guild. Kuru looks around, a quiet realization dawning that she has found a place here. In a moment of pure joy, Sirius lifts her high into the air. He beams at her, praising her for doing a wonderful job and trying her best. With tears of pure joy streaming down her face, Kuru gives a happy nod. The entire guild celebrates her, surrounded by the many people who see her worth. At the edge of a vast forest, a young cat-eared girl named Lilina wanders listlessly. Holding a stick, she sighs with disappointment, wondering when her friends will return to the village. Suddenly, one of her sensitive ears twitches, catching a sound or feeling from the woods. With a heightened sense of alarm, she turns and stares back at the foreboding forest path. Her companion tells her it's time to go home, but she expresses that something feels strange again. The kind man approaches, asking what's wrong, as she explains the feeling comes from the forest. Within the woods, the mangled jaw of a monster confirms the source of the strange presence. The scene reveals the beast's colossal corpse lying amidst the shattered aftermath of a violent struggle.